Hello everybody, I'm back again. I know it's been a while, but welcome to Free Your Man, Your Ass Will Follow Again. Now, as I was stating in previous episodes, man, we got into the 70s, right? And the Black is Beautiful movement was going on, but there was a whole lot of other things going on in the 70s, man. Now check this out. In the 70s, we had factories closing, we were at the end of the Vietnam War. We even had busing to schools, man, in 1976, I believe. Now, the Brown versus the Board of Education was passed down in 1954. We had a lot of trials and tribulation to get people integrated to different schools. Now, here we are in the 70s, still 20 years later, and still having that fight. We also had affirmative action. That was to give minorities an opportunity to go to more prestigious schools to get a so-called better education. I call it better miseducation. But then we also had the war on drugs. Man, now they came about when Reagan was elected president. They called this brand of politics Reaganomics. Now, Reagan instituted a lot of reform. Matter of fact, his campaign, I think he ran on reform. One of the main ones was welfare reform. Now, I'll show you what this dude did. He took one woman, man, out of Chicago. They dubbed her the welfare queen, right? And this woman was running around, man, had, they say, about 30 different identities collecting welfare checks, right? Hey, man, now, I applaud her initiative. Now, hey, okay, I'm going to get a lot of flack on there. But for him to take that one example and spread it all across the nation, and how should I say, it allowed him to institute a war on welfare fraud, you know, so to speak. Now, people were actually surviving on welfare. In fact, welfare was instituted in the 30s. See, let me bust some myths here. In the 30s, under something called the New Deal, I think the Roosevelt administration. That was because we were in the Depression, right? Coming out, and a lot of poor folk were suffering. A lot of people were suffering. They lost jobs, they lost their money and everything. So he instituted some programs to help people, you know, either to get back on their feet or either just to survive, man. Which in my opinion was a good thing, right? So now here we are in the 70s. We got welfare, right? I told you how the stigma behind being on welfare kind of affected me in the 60s, right? Because I didn't know that we were poor, right? Until I started seeing the food stamps, you know, because in the 60s we had 2 family homes going on. But now we're in the 70s. Another phenomenon occurred. A lot of factories started closing down. They call it the deindustrialization. So a lot of unskilled labor was null and void. We didn't need you no more, so to speak, right? Because now you have to be educated to do this because they were going into a technological age. Out of the 70s also came a movement called the Women's Liberation Movement. Now, this in essence was women saying that, hey, I don't need no man to take care of me. I could do it myself. That with their little song they had, I could bring on the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so man, I'm going to tell y'all something, man. Y'all didn't even have to do that because there was already a plan underfoot to remove the man out the house. Now, I'm going to read an article, man, that I've kept with me for a number of years. This was written by former Mayor Richard Daley defending his father and the projects. Everybody know what the projects is. Y'all remember the projects? Anyway, the article says, Daley, high-rises were Fred's idea, not my dad's. For decades, former Mayor Richard D. Daley has worn the jacket for warehousing Chicago's poorest residents in CHA high-rises that turn into crime-ridden ghettos. Tuesday, the late mayor's son tried to correct the record, even as he predicted reporters won't print the new version. The younger Daley said his father and then U.S. Senator Paul Douglas went to Washington in 1959 and lobbied for federal funding to build low-rise, public housing to meet the need caused by the migration of African Americans from the South, Mississippi, you know, Louisiana, all that coming up here, y'all, for a so-called better way of life. Anyway, according to Daley, the demand for low-rises was refused by federal officials who said you had to go up high if federal money was to be used. They, the elder Daley and Douglas, objected because people were coming from a rural way of life. They never lived in high-rises, the mayor said. 2 federal guidelines, now pay attention, made the problem even worse, Daley said. One required that CHA high-rises take the poorest of the poor, and that those who landed even minimum wage jobs had to move out. The second edict denied benefits to those who got married. Daley said, they destroyed the work ethic of people, and they destroyed the family relationship of marriage and everything else going with it, the mayor said. Reminded that his dad has been saddled with the blame for CHA high rise all these years, Daley said, who else you gonna blame? And so, in essence, what are they saying, man? Look here, you come here, you limit to them high rises, man. Now, there's a theory that's called proximity breeds contempt. In essence, people who bunch together, live close together, they begin to resent each other, man. All that stress, that violence. And we witnessed that in the projects, right? So now, women came with the women's liberation movement talking about, well, I can take care of myself, I don't need, so then the term come out, baby mama. Sound familiar? Baby daddy. Because women were under the premise that I don't need no man to take care of me. But like I say, you ain't even have to go that far because the plan was already underfoot to move the man out of the house. See, we were taught, oh well, when I was coming up, I thought the goal was to finish school, go to work in one of them factories that could sustain you for, who knows, probably the rest of your life until you retire. When I come up in the 60s, I saw men who were the head of the household, women stay home, and they had good jobs they could take care of. But now we're in the 70s, man, and a lot of that is changing. Because remember some of the other policies to make it more personal, bring it home. If you were on welfare, they had a social worker that used to come out to your house, right, and check to make sure you didn't have any of these so-called, I'm going to call them extremities, like a toaster, a radio. So what you would see when welfare, when the social worker is coming, you would know because people on the block would tell you, man, my mama's social worker coming out today. I can't have no company. Then they would give them baths and put on their best clothes and stuff to make sure the kids look all right. Hurry up, put some food in the refrigerator. But toasters and stuff, stack them on the back porch. You might see dudes jumping out the window, man, getting out the house, man. Because these were some of the mandates to have a welfare check. So, man was being erased. Today you see him, he's been replaced by what's called a Link. What's the baby daddy name? Link. What's his last name? Card. Okay, I see it, man. So, given this, in the 70s, all this going on, the affirmative action, Reaganomics, and the war on drugs. Man, war on drugs. In my opinion, they became the war on poor folk. Now I said poor folk, I didn't say blacks because a lot of times we want to make this synonymous. Everything, poverty with black, poverty, war on drugs with black. However, I come to find out that there were more white people on welfare than black folk. However, white folk were given what Dr. Umar Johnson coined, the illusion of inclusion. That means that because you were white, even though you was poor, you was better than other people who were considered to be poor. So now, to show you how masterful that illusion is, you know, even though white folk was poor as hell, just like black folk, they were given the illusion that they were better. Now, they might get a job quicker than a brother or whatever, you know, because they classified themselves as being white. However, the bottom line is that you still lived in poverty. Now, in order to work with people who suffer or who live with substance use disorders, some of those lines have to be erased, man, because substance use disorder does not discriminate. It does not care about your gender, your race, your social status, whatever. But what I do find in America is that what we have is a class system. You have a class system. You have a low class and a high class, period. Now, low class does not discriminate again. How should I say, it depends on how much money you got. Remember I mentioned in the 60s about white flight. Happened when black folks were given the opportunity to move into other, what they call better neighborhoods, right, around white folk. So when they did, white folk was leaving. They were running. Now in the 70s, what the real estate developers did, they preyed on white folk. They would tell them that, hey man, your property value is going down because you have blacks living here. So if I was you, I would hurry up and sell, man, to get the value you can off your property, right? White folk, oh yeah. So now with that, white folks leaving, that left more real estate for black folk to move into. Now, as soon as you got some money or you had a better job, hell yeah, I'm gonna go to a better neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So now, I call that black flight. Black flight. Blacks leaving the neighborhood, taking their resources, their knowledge, and everything else with them to go prove that they are better by moving in formerly white neighborhoods. Now, what black flight did to people down in these neighborhoods, it took the neighbor out of neighborhood. So now what you have is hoods. And that's what I'm a product of. The hood. See, we had a term, they had a term, I think it was in the 90s, what they used to call females hood rats and stuff like that, right? Boy, let me tell you, there was a whole lot of dudes who was hood rats. Dudes that stayed in the hood forever, did not venture out the hood. The hood I stayed in, anytime you left to go visit somewhere else, we called it going out the way. That's how entrenched we were in the hood. Now, living in these hoods with factories closing down, people losing their job, the hood went down further. Case in point, one area, U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel employed a lot of people, paid good money. The work was hard, but it paid good money. People could raise a family. I watched as that steel mill closed, how the neighborhood went down. Prior to that, there were lounges, or we'll call them taverns, on every corner. There were restaurants owned by blacks. Boy, but when the steel mill closed down, they shut down. So now we left our own resources. Now, the bottom line is a person has an innate need to feel needed, a sense of belonging, to be loved. Now, you left in the hood to your own devices to get those feelings. You're going to take advantage of them. So, I call this segment, right now, it's called The Transformation. And the next segment is entitled Transform. And I'm going to show you how we reacted to all the changes to be respected in the hood. Thank you.